Our guest on with today is Mac Davis. Now, I know it's superfluous to say a man who needs no introduction, so I won't do that. But he's with Columbia, and he's keeping them in very good business. Mac, you have a couple of things going for you as a performer and as a songwriter and as a storyteller and an entertainer. At what point in your life did you decide that you'd rather be a performer? You make more points that way than being, say, a songwriter and instrumentalist.
Well, really, I had two different points in my life where I decided that. Once when I was about 15 years old, and I'd left home and went to Atlanta, Georgia, and I found out that singing and playing guitar and stuff was a better way to get girls than stealing hubcaps and what have you. And I formed this little rock and roll band, and which lasted about 3 years, and then I got married real young and had a baby right off the bat, Scotty, of course, and quit the rock and roll band and just started working within the record business as a promotion man and later a regional sales manager. But I was always writing songs, at the time. And then 12 years after I was 15, when I was 27, I got a hit finally with Elvis Presley. And at that time I quit and became a songwriter. And a year later somebody says, look, why don't you sing your own songs? And so I started performing again. And that was I was about 28 years old. It was about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
That rock band you had sounds very interesting. First of all, the name Mac Davis and the Zots.
You've heard.
There has to be a story there somewhere.
Well, we were searching for a name, and the BC comic strip, the old anteater would go Zot, and the lightning would flash, and it would go Zot. And so we found some white shoes one day. We were going around town shopping for something to wear for outfits. Now, this is late 50s rock and roll time, and we found some white shoes that had a lightning stripe embedded in the side, a black lightning stripe inlaid into them. We just thought that was the coolest thing we'd ever seen. So we all bought a pair of these shoes. Then we bought some white Levi's and white shirts, just plain white dress shirts, and had our moms and what have you sew lightning stripes down the side of the pants. And we became the Zots. We looked like a bunch of psychedelic bakery boys.
And you traveled all through the South, primarily.
Yeah, we had mostly fraternity parties. The biggest thing we ever did was meat packers unions and stuff like that, local halls,
I've seen you do a lot of work on TV apart from your singing it, and it looks to me as though you get a great enjoyment out of doing lines. But you like to rap with people. You like to do sketches.
Yeah, I've only done one sketch, really, and that was on the Carson show one time. I was a little less than hilarious. But I had a lot of fun doing it. I was supposed to...
They don't go in for much rehearsal, I understand.
Oh, no, not much at all. John's real quick on the rehearsals. He wants to get in there and get out. But we had... I really enjoyed doing it. My mother called me up afterwards. That's when I had a beard. And I had a beard, and my mom watched the show, and I really I played a real country hick bowling alley guy, and I had a bowling ball stuck on my thumb, and he was a faith healer of some sort. And I was rolling my eyes and going, well, I got this thing stuck on my thumb here. And, my mother called me up and says, you looked like a Ubangi or something like that. I forget what she called me. Or the wild man from Borneo. And she says, and why did you have to talk so stupid? I thought I was doing real good. Everybody said my mom.
You're talking about a beard. I want to ask you a personal question. Who's your hairdresser?
Well, I have this guy in Los Angeles. His name is Lorray. And he about once every 3 months I get him to trim my hair a little bit. He's a nice fella.
It's great.
But it just trims out. My hair is just naturally like this. I just wash it and just put a hair dryer on it, and blow it like that for a while, and that's the way it ends up.
Do you consider yourself, quote, a good old country boy, or is that part of somebody's image of
country boy, basically? I don't know how good old country boy I am. There have been times when I'm not such a nice guy, I'm sure, but I'm country boy, basically.
How would you describe it? What kind of a guy would you say you are?
Well, what kind of guy would I say I am? I really couldn't say that. I'm a guy who likes to write songs and sing them, and I like people, really enjoy people.
Your people describe you as a song painter. Do you like that phrase, or is that just some publicity phrase?
Well, it started out innocently enough. It's really, I think it's kind of pretentious, when somebody says that, it's like like a voice should come out of the dark and say, "Song painter," you know. I know one time a guy introduced me. I was up in Pocatello, Idaho, at Idaho State University, and the guy introduced me as he was nervous, and he was a kid from the school, and he says, "And now presenting sound painter Mac Davis." And I went out and I started singing this song where it all came from, which is "I'll paint you a song." And when I got to the line at the end, I says, "I'll sing you a rainbow, I'll paint you a sound," and cracked up in the middle of it. But I got it from Glenn Campbell. I had written a song for a movie that he did called "I'll Paint You a Song," and the movie was called Norwood, kind of an ill-fated Glenn Campbell escapade. But when I put out my first album, we asked some people for comments, and we asked Glenn for a comment, just a quote to put on the back of the album. And he says, "Well, just tell him I said Mac Davis don't write songs, he paints them." Well, that became the title of the album, and it's just stuck. People just call me that.
The list of artists who have recorded your songs is like an honor roll of performers. Have you ever heard someone famous though he is do a song of yours with an interpretation that you would take issue with?
Yeah, myself included.
Really?
I've cut some of my songs sometime, and they sound awful good in my head, but when I heard them back, it's just like anyone who's ever heard themselves talk over a tape recorder, especially somebody that's not used to it, and the first time they hear themselves talking back on a tape recorder, they just can't believe that's them. Well, I've had it happen to me too. I've cut songs. A prime example is "I Believe in Music," which is my most recorded song. I recorded it twice, 2 different versions of it, put it out as a single both times. Stiffo, nothing. And I never was satisfied with it, and neither was the general buying public. But then a group called Gallery came out and recorded it, and it became a big hit. And I didn't like their version. But that's just the way it goes. Most of my songs, I feel very gratified that people just like my songs well enough to record them. And if they don't do it exactly the way I wrote it, well, that's not their fault. It's just that's the way that they did it, and that's the way they like it.
It seems to me that the thrill of hearing one of your own songs being played on radio, no matter how many times you've heard it, when you're driving along, say out west, or you're going to see a friend, or you're going to an engagement, the thrill of hearing one of your songs on a radio station must be supreme.
It's second only to the thrill of hearing somebody walking down the street or in a men's washroom or something that you never saw before and don't know, whistling it. Now that knocks me out.
I understand.
That really, if I, they don't know me and don't know who I am or whatever, and if they're standing going, whatever, it just tears me up. It's one of my first big goals.
Right. If you had to leave all this now, if you had to drop your career at this point, could you do it?
No. I could leave the traveling to somebody else, but writing songs, I have a line in a song that I wrote to be on my new album. The song is called "Beginning to Feel the Pain," and the line says, "Like a dime in the pocket of a kid, there's a sad song burning a hole in my brain." Well, that's kind of the way I am. If I don't write them songs, they just crowd up in my head, and it's like Bob Dylan used to say about his long hair. The newscasters would ask him about his long hair, and he'd say, "Well, it's obvious that the less hair that you let grow out of your head, the more that's left inside there to tangle around your brain and thereby constrict your thinking processes." Well, that's the same way I am about songwriting. I have to write it. And I just
get a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas like that.
Well, it's my therapy. It's my outlet, and the thoughts come, and when they do, if I don't put them into music, then I'm in big trouble.
Well, you're clear-eyed, and it looks like it agrees very well with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I've enjoyed it.
Mac Davis, the one and only, our guest on Omelette, and we'll be back with more in just a minute.